Are are we live? Yes, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a delightful little Saturday stream. As you can see today, we're getting back into Dungeons and Dragons. Specifically, we're going to be having another little homebrew examination stream with another little subclass brought to us by Upgrade. Though quite a bit different than the last one, it should still be very exciting to take a look at. I wanted, however, to start off today's stream with a bit of a apology and explanation. I seem to have been getting a bit too excited during yesterday's stream and having pushed it a bit longer than I'm used to and being a bit rowdier than I'm used to. I seem to have partially given myself a bit of a sore throat today, and my voice is teetering on the edge. So I'm going to be a little soft spoken today, and today is going to be a very short stream as far as my D&D ones go. We're just going to be looking at one subclass, giving it a full in-depth look through for you upgrade. But that's basically all we're going to be doing today. So we should be keeping ourselves to being within a 1 hour mark. And might even be ending a bit early to make sure I don't totally throw out my voice and have to skip an entire week of doing streaming. But I was very excited and wanted to make sure that we at least got something in today. So, to give myself just a minute here, how are all you doing? Who's excited to be taking a look at another upgrade subclass? Has anybody out there been working on their own D&D homebrew? And who here is just excited to be watching and isn't necessarily super into the D&D side of things? Actually, I do want to say someone out there has called it. I'm afraid my redeems are going to be a little off today, as I've begun the process of moving myself over to being ready to do my Mass Effect stream, so things are a little different in that department. I have arrived. Bask in my glory. Session 1, my entire party died. Tim, were you DMing or playing? Because that's going to give a very different energy to that sentence. Doing good, Eric. Excited to be here again today. Well, I'm excited to have you, Sour Cake, as always. Tim, what did you do? What did you do to your party that got them killed off so quickly in the first session? Was it cave bears? Did you throw cave bears at a level 1 party? Ah, V, glad to see you're here. They tried to steal a baby Triceratops. So they fought 3 guards while level 1. Last time was very informative, so excited. Yeah, alright. Well, I mean, partially asked for, but god damn, if you put a baby Triceratops in front of a D&D group, you are baiting them, is all I'm gonna say, Tim. That right there, a baby Triceratops is the ultimate Boblin the Goblin, and I think you know that. It was for sale. Oh, and did you make sure they had enough cash to buy it? They were just being cheap. Okay, nope, I'm back on your side. I'm back on your side. I'm here since my D&D session got canceled. Still need my D&D fix. All right. Well, I'll try to make this as exciting as possible. But again, unfortunately, today's going to be a bit of a shorter, lighter stream. I'm convincing my friend to not play the Krabadin again. It was 400 gold, and I offered ways to earn the gold or win it. Ah, I'm sorry, Tim. And the baby was cheaper. All right, though. If we can pull everything in Today, we're doing another subclass examination. We're going to be going through another one of Upgrade's subclasses that he submitted to me to kind of look through on stream. Today, we're looking at a fighter subclass called the Discharged Veteran. I'm very excited. Currently, I'm thinking about buying a new scanner camera to improve the visuals of my art since I'm drawing on paper. I'd love to draw monsters and characters for you as well. Hell yeah, Marcia. And so, for those who were not on the last stream or did not catch the VOD, what we're going to be going through is a homebrewed subclass today. We're going to be looking at all the features they earn and trying to see what existing features in the PHB are really similar and can help us figure out some balancing issues, solutions, or where it kind of fits on a general power scale. With this class in particular, we're going to be looking at some features that the PHB doesn't generally cover, so we're probably going to actually have a bit of time discussing what things are powerful or not so much, what's attractive, and what is maybe going to deter a player from wanting to try this. And as with any homebrew written project, there's going to be a lot of discussion of wording, word choices, and where to copy sentence structure from the PHB to make things as clean and uniform with the expected style as possible. Upgrade has already gone through this process, so I know he's ready. But as I've discussed before, when I'm getting into criticism, I know I tend to focus on the things that need to be fixed, because the things that I like, I tend to skim over, just thinking of them as already being fine and not needing attention. So, if there's at any point throughout this process where anyone's curious what I really do like about a part that I haven't talked about, just give me a little ping, and I'll make sure to go back and recover some of the more positive elements or things that I really do love about the features we're going to be going over. I once made a warrior sub called the Ronin. His entire thing was being able to walk in and out of engagement range of other players was engaged in. So he walked around and helped fights. A little like the mastermind in that way, I guess. But for now, we will be discussing the Discharged Veteran. The fighter subclass of the Discharged Veteran explores the capabilities of an elderly person who took part in many a battle and wars, and lived to tell the tale, to even grow into their later years. The fighters under this subclass are those into their later ages, who either, out of a need or simple want to relive the nostalgia-filled memories, get back into fighting, or similar situations. As they go on, whatever paths they take in this world, the repressed memories from times long past reveal themselves, and their body also begins to remember its training, and slowly they regain a certain degree of their old prowess. Some of them even end up taking positions as squad leaders, or can even lead adventuring or mercenary parties, using their knowledge to keep the new fledglings around them alive. The features available to a discharged veteran begin with one of the more interesting ones here. One that plays around with a feature that is always been questioned in Dungeons and Dragons, even all the way back to first edition, or D&D Advanced if you're so inclined. The idea of learning skills. Interestingly, the rules for learning skills have always been very much in the DM's pocket. This is one of the rule sets that will have some existing rules around them, and we're going to be first looking off at what 5th edition D&D has kind of written up for them, but they're always a little loose, involve a lot of time sink that doesn't tend to fit in really well with a D&D game, and seems to imagine characters taking large time skips in order to achieve them. So we'll take a look at a quick post that kind of brings up some of the PHB deals to do with this. First, you must find an instructor willing to teach you. The DM determines how long it takes and whether one or more ability checks are required. The training lasts for at least 250 days and costs 1 gold per day. After you spend the requisite amount of time and money, you learn a new language, gain a proficiency with the new tool. I hear that's really all you can find within the general PHP about learning new traits, stats, features type of thing outside of the leveling system. Even here, though, there are a lot of questions that kind of come up. So is this only limited to languages and tool proficiencies? Can it be applied to skill proficiencies? Can a wizard teach spells, or does everything have to go through the general scroll reading and copying system? Because of that, learning skills is always a bit of a muddy discussion when playing D&D, even though you would think it would make a lot of sense for a party member who is very skilled in something to be able to slowly teach the other party members what to do. Which is why there's a lot to discuss about how it works. But I do love the Discharged veteran's first feature. Impromptu teacher. Starting at 3rd level, if you spend 4 short rests, or a short rest that is 4 hours long, together with a student that you share a language with, you can teach them a skill, how to use a weapon or a tool proficiency. They retain proficiency with that skill, weapon, or tool until they finish a long rest. If you do this every day for a month, continuously with the same student, the proficiency with the skill you teach becomes permanent. If you wish to teach someone else a proficiency, you must complete an already started teaching cycle, or drop it, losing the progress you might have made until then. If they already have proficiency with the respective skill, you do not give them expertise. You cannot teach someone who has levels of exhaustion. Here you can see this is a system for learning not only tool proficiencies or languages. In fact, I don't think language is included in this rule set, which I'll be curious to hear from you, Upgrade, whether that's an intentional or unintentional exclusion. But as you can see, a 4-hour period to learn a skill temporarily exists here. So this is not really learning the skill so much as gaining a proficiency bonus. Unintentional? Understood. So this means in a lot of cases, this is basically going to end up being a flat 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, depending on the party's level at the time of learning. So learning this skill is going to give a flat bonus on average for a campaign, somewhere around +3 or +4 to a skill that a party member isn't normally proficient with. This could be very potent for some skills like perception, persuasion, stealth, athletics, kind that can be used when trying to navigate situations very well. Let's hear. Also, a fighter would focus more on the others. Language would be a more learned man type of thing. Though I think you could also make the argument that many tools, such as cartography tools, calligraphy tools, and a few of the other more artistically or scholarly focused tools might fall into a similar set. But I do agree there's a bit of a weird position here when discussing the difference between teaching a language, teaching a tool, and teaching a skill. The very first thing I kind of want to discuss is the unique time frame being used here. Within D&D, there's 2 basic time frames that are used for downtime in a party. and they are a short rest and a long rest. A short rest is a period of 1 hour of non-arduous work where people are basically just taking a moment to catch their breath, relax for an uninterrupted hour period. After time, most martial classes will get a lot of their features back. Some casters will get some of their features back, warlocks being an exception to that rule. But it doesn't give party members everything back. It gives them a very quick kind of reboost before moving from one fight to another, if it's allowed by a party or by a campaign. The second is the long rest, which is an 8-hour uninterrupted period, generally considered sleep or at least something very similar, depending on how stressful of a situation is. Both of these periods, though, are generally what a lot of features are balanced around when they're looking at doing something in downtime, either being 1 hour or 8 hours. So this is kind of the first thing I want to bring up is this 4-hour short rest period, or something that falls within a long rest period but isn't counted as a long rest, is a little awkward to be plugging into 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, just because off the top of my head, I don't know of any features other than these that match this time frame. So I'm curious if this time frame is something that was chosen to try to be less restrictive than a long rest, but more restrictive than a short rest, and why this wouldn't work with being something that could be done over the course of a low, arduous, long rest. I think, in my opinion, before, I know you're going to be typing things out as I'm talking, Upgrade, but my first instinct is, at this point, it's going to be a lot cleaner to just say this is something that can be done over the course of a long rest without interrupting the long rest. This does make it, time-wise, harder to use technically, as now you can't take a shorter 4 hours out of your day, but also I think slots it a little easier into how a party tends to function, where your teacher can now pick one party member, and after the next long rest, they'll gain a small bonus until the entire party long rests again. If there's a major reason you don't think that would work, Upgrade, I'd be interested to hear that. But I think just because of how timing, party dynamics, and just sort of the flow of a D&D game tends to work, I'm hesitant about the idea of adding in a new segment of time that exists outside of both the short rest time period and the long rest time period that most party members and players are going to be comfortable and most easily able to slot things into. So a lot of those tools are used on the road as well, even calligraphy as a messenger, you know? Yeah, I know. And that's just what I'm saying, that certain tools and skills and languages, I think, kind of have that idea. Let's hear. I could say 2 hours out of a long rest without interrupting, so they still have some impact as the teacher and student. Need to do watch together to train them and need to sleep the next 6-hour rest. Yeah, so I think that's just what I'm saying, is instead of saying like a short rest that is longer than a short rest, simply rewording this as this is a process that can be done during a long rest, where you can spend an hour of your long rest performing this, which doesn't interrupt the process. I think there are a few tools that exist, like the Poisoner's Kit and the Cooking Kit, that have similar rules where they could be used during a long rest without interrupting it. That might be worth looking into to see if there exists some phrasing for these. But I think just saying this gets to be included in your long rest simplifies when you do it and lets you know every long rest, check who has a skill and who's losing a skill, unless you're going for the full teaching process. Let's see. You can teach them a skill or how to use a weapon or tool proficiency. So any skill, weapon, or tool proficiency that you already have. This is just a clarification thing. I think this is the perfect sentence to plug in the statement that you should already have the proficiency. And I just wanted to call this sentence out as being the cleanest point to kind of plug that in. So here, they retain proficiency with the skill or until they finish a long rest. Yeah. So this is sort of just a general sentence that already kind of exists within the PHB all over the place. Is I think you want to look more for the sentence structure of this effect lasts until the end of your next long rest. Let's see here. If you do this every day for a month continuously with the same student, that little feature actually reminded me of one of my favorite dumbest magic items that exists already in D&D that has nothing to do with teaching, but is another long-term investment to get sort of an interesting item to you, and that is the Pot of Awakening. If you plant an ordinary shrub in this 10-pound clay pot and you let it grow for 30 days, the shrub magically transforms into an awakened shrub at the end of that time. When the shrub awakens, its root breaks the pot, destroying it. It is friendly towards you, and absent commands from you will do nothing. So you can see this is another big time sink type of thing, and it gives you a rather weak but existent ally to have. I think the 1 month time period is pretty decent. I would look into seeing if D&D ever uses the terminology of a month. It's definitely not a major issue in any way, shape, or form. I just almost always see things broken down in daytimes, like 30 days, 120 days, or sometimes they'll say over the course of a year. I might be wrong, and I don't know why they would avoid using the term month, but there might be a reason to look into. Some months are 31 and so on. Yeah, that might just be the only real reason, is just a moment of questioning. Though if you do leave it vague, that does give the option of letting them cut things down by a day or two if they're doing really well. Though that's much more in kind of your zone of figuring out how exactly you want to finesse that. The proficiency with the skill you teach becomes permanent. I really like this. Not a lot of abilities in D&D allow for a big time sink. It's something to be aware of, that because you're going for kind of a time sink class here, especially with some later features we're going to be talking about, this is a class that's going to struggle in its balance in a very particular way, and that is, it is going to have vastly different levels of balance between a campaign and a one-shot structure. And that's something that is really hard to balance out very well with some classes. But I think this class is going to have a note on it at some point if you are looking to do kind of public publishing with it, is letting people know whether this is better balanced for one-shots or for full campaigns. Because right now, this feature, obviously, the permanent bonus, could never be used in a one-shot structure. The small proficiencies obviously can and would be very good, especially granting a weapon proficiency that someone doesn't have, can honestly make or break some builds pretty well. But this is the hardest thing to discuss, is the difference between one shot and campaign balance, but it's something to upgrade you really need to keep in mind with long-term based abilities, or abilities that have longer than a long rest cooldown on them, that there's going to be some things to really consider between the difference between a campaign format and a one-shot format. All right. And then the last little bit I want to talk about on this first feature is you cannot teach someone who has levels of exhaustion. So does this mean both you or the student? So I actually slightly balanced it to be decently useful for one-shots as well through Watch the Recruits, and at higher levels, the all reliable comes nicely into play. Yeah, it's just, and we'll definitely discuss it once we get to the very last, I think. Either the last or the second to last ability, or I'm going to say might be very well balanced for a campaign, but very, very strong in a one-shot session. But we'll get there. So what I would say is this one line, though, might need a little bit of clarity. Can the teacher teach while exhausted? I would imagine since exhaustion is being brought up, both characters probably can't have any levels of exhaustion, but it's something to kind of consider there. Is just clarifying a little bit on whether one member or the other can have exhaustion or it's no member can. I should mention. Yeah. All right. Ah, no problem. No problem. Watch the recruits. Starting at 3rd level, you are able to keep an eye on the fledglings you are adventuring with and watch out for any mistakes they might make, helping them out before they do something that might cost them their life. When someone within 30 feet of you is about to make an attack roll, saving throw, or ability check, you may spend your reaction to whisper, tell, or shout at them a warning or heartily yelled piece of advice. This gives them advantage on the roll. If both rolls are lower than 8, the roll becomes an 8. You may use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency modifier. You regain all uses of this feature at the end of a short rest. So, here there's a few things I first want to kind of look at. The first is when someone within 30 feet of you, the first obvious question is that you can see, that you can hear. I know you're shouting advice here, so how much perception do you need on the target? And how much perception does the target need on you? Does a zone of silence, for example, totally block this out? Or does a zone of darkness totally block this out? Obviously, when it comes to shouting advice, darkness doesn't affect, but do you need to be actively seeing what they're doing in order to give them advice? Or is this a type of advice that you can give without seeing what they are doing? Because there are certainly situations where you can yell advice at someone that's fighting a particular monster, like these things always attack high, that they don't need to see the fight to give the advice for, but it would still need to be heard. So yeah, I think just very much saying you need to be able to see and hear them, they need to be able to see and hear you, or you need to be able to see them, they need to be able to hear you, but you don't need any other direct forms of perception. Yeah, so I think definitely clarifying anything that is 30 feet, anything that has range, you have to make sure you know what line of perception needs to exist here. Let's hear. So it's about to make an attack roll, saving throw, or ability check. This is some terminology that falls directly into one of the classic buffing spells of D&D. The spell every cleric should cast every fight, in my opinion, as long as you don't have something bigger and better to drop. You bless up to 3 creatures of your choice within range. Whenever a target makes an attack roll or saving throw before the spell ends, the target can roll a d4 and add the number rolled to the attack roll or saving throw. As you can see here, this is a level 1 spell. It is something that is a staple, but isn't super powerful. So the first thing to take a note of, this is us comparing a level 1 spell, something characters have at level 1, to a level 3 feature. So definitely Watch the Recruit should be more powerful. But there are a few areas then to look at where it already is more powerful in its format. First of all, attack roll, saving throw, or ability check. So right here, Watch the Recruits is already better than Bless because it also allows ability checks, things that are made super often and at not needing to spend a spell slot. This is now basically the combination of the spells Bless and Guidance. Two spells, one of which is a cantrip, one of which requires a spell slot that this one feature is covering. That's not inherently bad in any way, but that's the moment to start going, okay, how much further are we pushing this? Because this is starting to cover a lot of ground, making it very versatile. And versatility is always powerful. You may spend your reaction to whisper, tell, or shout at them a warning or heartily yelled piece of advice. I think right here, just as a quick note, there are two different moments you're mentioning volume. Isn't it a waste of a feature to basically have a buffed up version of the help action? It is not actually, Blinty, and we will discuss that as soon as we get to it. I just want to say upgrade. I think this sentence needs a bit of reworking. I understand you're trying to say it can be given at any volume, which I think is fine to define, but you're defining it and redefining it in two different spots in the sentence. So I think just a quick rework here to make sure you're not saying you can shout it and you can yell it at two different points. I know this is a bit more of a flavor sentence, but just it's a very minor point to get into. So, yep. This gives them advantage on the roll. If both rolls are lower than an 8, the roll becomes an 8. Now this, as Blinty pointed out, is very similar to an existing action in the game called the help action. However, how the help action works, especially for an attack roll or any other attack, is on your turn, you can use your action to declare a helping action for attacking for an ally. You could say, I'm going to help my ally attack this enemy. Because of that, the help action is a lot more restricted, and that you need to declare up front what you're helping them do. So you cannot wait till they do it and use your reaction. It is something you have to use an action to proactively help, and you cannot reactively help. So it is definitely a buffed up version of the help action, but that is also another subclass for the rogues class, which exists, called the Master of Tactics. Starting at 3rd level, you can use your help action as a bonus action. Additionally, when you use the help action to aid an ally in attacking the creature, the target of that attack can be within 30 feet of you rather than within 5 feet of you if the target can see or hear you. Now here, though, we can still see that your feature, the Watch the Recruits, is aggressively stronger than the rogue's ability, as that one is held into what the help action can do and only gains a range on attack rolls to the target, not to the ally. So it's a bit more restricted than your ability here is, and it only grants advantage, not advantage with a floor. Also, I don't believe the help action can help with saving throws. So Watch the Recruits, balance-wise, is going to be, I think, a step better than any other existing feature at this level. The Bless action, which is a 1st level spell but can be buffed to a 2nd level spell, which is more of an equivalent to what a 3rd level feature should be, can hit 2 allies at the same time, granting them a plus D4 to their attack rolls and saving throws, but not their ability checks. The buffed up Rogue's help action is now a bonus action, not a reaction, which is still easier to use, and only affects attack rolls and ability checks, and not saving throws. Because of this, the Help Recruits, with its range, its affecting of all 3 types of checks, and the fact that it grants both a floor of 8 which functionally is about a +2 to +3 to most stats, which is already what Bless is giving, and grants advantage, which is what the rogue help action is doing, is very powerful. It is a little more limited in that you only have enough uses of this equal to your proficiency modifier, but it is still very, very powerful. Which is why I think this is something that we want to change a little bit in what it grants. I love the idea of advantage with a floor, but I think that might be a little too powerful for being able to affect attack rolls, saving throws, and ability checks. What do you think, Upgrade? By comparing it to the level 2 Bless spell and the 3rd level Rogue feature of getting a bonus action help, I just want to make sure that's kind of coming across, that this is more versatile and more number influential than both of those features. So I think there needs to be an area where we nerf it down slightly. That could be something like removing the floor of an 8 and making it just an advantage. But honestly, I am in love with the idea of this setting the 8 floor. So my instinct first is actually to remove the advantage to the roll and just saying he's helping a bit, so he's giving them a floor to their roll. I think we could definitely think about maybe buffing that floor since we're taking the advantage away. I think it's strong, yeah, and it makes it useful as a reaction, but I feel like it's also restricted to having one reaction a turn that could be crucial to doing other things. True, but the Bless spell at a 2nd level is also reduced to 1 action a turn and is burning spell slots. And the rogue help action is reduced to 1 bonus action, which can only be used once a turn, and in most cases can be used to make a 2nd attack action. So I think the use of the reaction actually opens it up to being within the same action economy, if not better than Bless, at least a tie with the rogue's bonus action feature. What I think is ultimately this needs to be nerfed slightly. I love everything it does, and so just what my advice would be is getting rid of the advantage and just giving them a floor of an 8. I think that could also work very well just because a lot of features already exist in the game that kind of can grant advantage to any of these attack roll, saving throws, and ability checks. And this can make the feature feel a little more like an additional help than being a chief action that's going to be used practically every turn. So also, advantage is technically a +5 to a roll, so later on it's not as strong as Bard Inspiration, for example, I think. And that's true. So I think a couple other ideas that we can definitely look at is maybe looking at the idea of, instead of advantage, allowing them to now add in the veterans proficiency bonus is something that could be very interesting. Something that would scale with levels. It would start out, I think, very weak. So at level 3, that's going to be just a +2 to an attack roll, saving throw, or ability check with a reaction. But I think playing off of the veterans proficiency bonus could be a very fun way to play with it. Maybe regain uses after a long rest. That is something that could definitely balance it out to a degree. It would still, I think, be very powerful, but that might be the other way to kind of nerf this, is restrict its total uses and the flexibility of its uses a bit. Yeah, limiting it obviously is going to make it not as fun in a lot of ways, but I think right now it's sitting in just one step too far into being powerful, And I'm very open to hearing other ideas, especially if anyone out there has some thoughts about the way to take it just the smallest step back from its current position. One thing we could look at is maybe just removing saving throws from it. Maybe take out advantage, raise the floor to a 10, and just have that. I think that could work very well. Yeah, that is actually, I want to see 1 second. It's been a while for me. So I think that is really good because that is very similar to actually an existing magic item at the common level, which should be kind of about where a lot of third level features should probably exist around. The Clockwork Amulet is a copy amulet that contains tiny interlocking gears and is powered by magic of Mechanicus, a plane of clockwork predictability. A creature that puts an ear to the amulet can hear faint ticking and whirring noises coming from within. When you make an attack roll while wearing the amulet, you can forego rolling the d20 and get a 10 on the die. Once used, this property can't be used again until the next dawn. So I think there already exists in the game a common item with one use a day that gives you a 10. However, this one you forego rolling the d20 and just get a 10, so you also forego beating a 10. I think, yeah, a floor of 10 might be the best way to work around that. If we floor it at 10, remove the advantage, then this is more of a security net feature that I think it would be very appreciated, especially in more min-maxed parties, to have kind of that guarantee that they won't fuck up the most important play of the game, essentially. Does D&D have levels of affection between characters like dating sims? Maybe watch recruits can have an affection level or affection understanding between characters. Unfortunately, D&D does not have any sort of affection or relationship feature within it. That's more followed by the looser rules of the role play. It would be interesting to play around with affection levels between characters, but that could also run into some weird areas of a player being able to impose how much characters like each other on other players, which is a very gross place to kind of go to. Damn, I never get alerts for these streams. Oh, I got you crazy. So a character who doesn't get so well with the veteran could have a reduced done. Made the proper changes to the impromptu teacher. Watch the recruits refreshing the page. All right. Wow, I think I'm going to be trying to push ahead a little bit because I am trying to keep the stream a little shorter. But I will take a look once we're kind of done with a lot of these and kind of see what some of the changes you're putting out are. So after that, we're looking at All Reliable. Starting at 7th level, you gain 1 proficiency in a skill and 1 proficiency in a tool. Additionally, choose one of your skills or tool proficiencies. Your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability checks made with that specific proficiency. At 10th level, you choose another skill and tool proficiency to gain this benefit. You also add your proficiency bonus to initiative. This is, I think, you're probably going to be open to admit, this is a little bit of the kind of, a lot of subclasses tend to have a bit of ebb and flow, where certain levels are very big spikes, and certain ones are a little more relaxed. This feels like this is definitely one of your more intentionally relaxed levels, I'd imagine. Upgrade, is that pretty accurate? 7th level for this guy is a bit less of a spike in power into anything and more of a let's take a level to be a little calm. Yeah, there it is. So things that are interesting: gaining a proficiency in a skill and a tool is something that the fighter class doesn't get a lot of. I believe the samurai subclass and a couple of the rogue and bard subclasses get to play around with gaining a lot of proficiencies and skills. But I really like it with this fighter class is they are supposed to have this strong teacher energy, allowing them to kind of learn more and more themselves as they level up fits perfectly into kind of how this class is supposed to feel. This next one's got some very unique wording. Yeah, and yeah, it's obviously flavored more of remembering things or your body reacclimating to what it used to do before. If example, you take a stealth or athletics as the skill you're regaining proficiency with. But I'm just saying, it really fits really well in this character having more and more to teach as they level up. Another way you can flavor this is not them remembering something, but them finally figuring out how best to explain it to other people. Because the thing to remember is as they're leveling up, they're also unlocking more skills that they can teach with that very first feature that they unlocked. So another way to maybe flavor it is them becoming more comfortable with it. So this next part of it is a little weird textually. Additionally, you choose one of your skills or tool proficiencies. Your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability checks made with that specific proficiency. The very first thing I want to say is additionally here, I think you want to actually take out and just make this choose one of your skills or two tool proficiencies simply to clarify that, and I'm assuming, so you let me know, is the proficiency in school and skill you gained here available for you to choose from? If they're not, then I kind of understand why you would say additionally for kind of an order of operation. You're gaining those and you get to pick one of your already known ones. But if these are available for the second part of the feature, then I think you want to just word it in order of operation. Of first, you gain a skill and a tool proficiency. Next, choose any one of the ones you know now after step 1 to gain this next bonus from. Yeah. So this is the wording for expertise. So this is where I'm wondering, are you not gaining expertise here? Why'd you choose to use the exact wording for expertise, but not to say that you gain expertise with that skill? Because as it's worded right now, I'm really curious, if I'm doubling my proficiency, then if I gain expertise in this skill, do I double my expertise? I think what you were trying to do here is just trying to make sure that you're saying expertise for a skill and double proficiency for a tool, because I don't think you gain expertise with tools. I used to write in expertise, but people said original text would be clearer. I think I kind of understand that, but this is where just you want to be careful with that wording, because here I now don't know if this is expertise or if this can be stacked on top of expertise. I can understand people saying that the original text is going to be clearer, but in that case, what I would say is let's go to, let's see your features. What is it? Prodigy? Yeah, I would just look at the prodigy feature, and you can see choose one skill you have proficiency. You gain expertise with that skill, which means your proficiency bonus is doubled. Yeah. So what I would think is just find the prodigy feature and just steal this text exactly from it, because the number one thing is to let people know you are gaining expertise. This is not something that stacks with expertise. At 10th level, you choose another skill and tool proficiency to gain this benefit. You also add a proficiency bonus to initiative. I do want to say, I think this is probably clear enough, but if you can think of any ways to make it more clear exactly what features are getting this bonus at 10th level, either writing in a 10th level version of this or not. I assume this is only meaning you gain another expertise. But wait, another skill and tool proficiency to gain this benefit. So yeah, so just because this is coming in here, there's a chance someone might misinterpret it saying, oh, I gain another skill and tool proficiency, and I gain another expertise. It's attached to the end of the expertise one. Yeah. So I think this is one that I think most people are going to interpret correctly, where the bonus is only another expertise, but is something that might be worth just double checking clarity on to make sure it comes across correctly. And then finally, we have this last step. You also add your proficiency bonus to initiative. This is something that can be very strong. Initiative is very important in combat. But I'm going to say falls out of, I think, a lot of the theming and flavor you've set up for this class up to this point. Up to this point, kind of the bonuses have been very much up to player choice. The player at the beginning gets to choose which skills and proficiencies they're teaching to their party members. They get to choose which attack, saving, or abilities they're helping their teammates with. They get to choose which skills they're gaining more proficiency with, which tools they're learning more about. They get to choose what they are gaining kind of expertise in. And I love having a proficiency bonus to initiative. It just feels a little... I feel like it fits. As you remember more and feel more confident in stuff, you're more eager to do things, which I do kind of get. It's just... I think flavor-wise, when you think through it, it does fit. Just mechanic-wise, it just feels slightly different than everything else up to this point. It definitely can fit in. But I do wonder if there's a way to better blend a small bonus. Plus, I just wanted to show off, if anything, for, what is this? I believe that was 7th level. Let's look. I believe it is Champion has its own bonus at level 7 called Remarkable Athlete. You gain half your proficiency bonus, round up, to any strength, dexterity, or constitution check. So this is obviously less of a bonus. You're not gaining your full proficiency bonus, but this is a bonus that would apply to initiative by being half your proficiency to all dexterity checks. But it's also half your proficiency to your strength, to your constitution. It's kind of it's a small boost to a lot of things that another fighter subclass has at the same level. I think it might be interesting to look at kind of that idea of playing with half proficiency like Champion does. I'm not saying do half proficiency to initiative, but I think just the fact that the Champion at the same level has kind of that broader bonus, I feel like this subclass really likes that jack of all trades feel, that broader bonus. So this might be something to say, add half your proficiency to all dexterity checks. Might actually fall a little more interesting here, because that would add half your proficiency bonus to your initiative, but would also allow it to play around with a wider set of skills, which I think this class, flavor-wise, really wants to live in the world of small bonuses to a wider variety of skills. Let's see here. What if you can choose? You can add your proficiency bonus to either initiative checks or a saving throw of your choice that you aren't proficient in already. Also, I have to say no on that. Feels like it then steps too much on the bard toes. True, though I'm just saying that also kind of exists within the champion subclass that the fighter already has, but it's fair enough. I think I really like the idea of picking kind of 2 ability checks. Maybe you could say saving throw, but you can add your proficiency bonus to either an initiative check or a saving throw. Another thing you could do here is just allow the player to choose any saving throw to gain that bonus in. I think maybe putting saving throws next to initiative might feel a little weird, though there might be another skill to kind of put next to initiative. Initiative is just so kind of unique in the area it occupies. It might be something where you can say you can add your proficiency bonus to your initiative, and maybe you could say something like perception or investigation, things that are also kind of passive, but they already get a proficiency bonus, so I don't think that would mesh very well with those skills. Let's see here. I guess, what do you think, Upgrade? Do you think if you were given the choice between a bonus to your initiative or a bonus to your saving throw? Yeah, you already gain a lot of proficiency in skills. We got to stay out of that. If you were given the choice between a bonus to your initiative and a bonus to a saving throw of your choice, do you feel like, yeah, both are good. I think both are good. Both are very good. We do have to wonder, are you just gaining proficiency with a saving throw? Because, let's see, what do fighters already start with? Let's see here. Let's find your proficiency. So fighters already start with 2 saving throws. So that could be really good. I think, yeah, it would definitely... Yeah, I really like that idea. I think saying you now can either choose to gain proficiency in any one saving throw of your choice, or gain basically proficiency with your you know, the wording you already have. I think that choice there is a lot more interesting. I really like it. I don't know. That obviously makes it more powerful. Getting a diversity of choice is always powerful. It allows you to be a lot more reactive. But I think it just makes it so much more interesting and lets it kind of fit a lot more in how customized this subclass is. That I think I like how it slots in a lot better if you decide to make that now a choice between initiative or gaining a new saving throw proficiency. Oh, yeah. I'm already ahead of you. Made the modification. Yeah, I guess that would make you a lot interested in that. Now, resurfacing experience. Starting at 10th level, choose one new skill proficiency. Additionally, a student you taught proficiency into a skill or tool can gain expertise in it from your teachings, if you also have expertise in that skill or tool. This takes 8 hours worth of downtime to teach someone an expertise which lasts until the student finishes a long rest. If you do this every day for 3 months continuously, the expertise becomes permanent. You may teach 1 expertise per student and no more. So this one I think is quite obvious what my first thing is I want to kind of restructure it just a little bit where, let's see here, where we take this famous little line from our last feature, and first thing first, I want to add that to, I mean, obviously we're going to make some changes, but basically add an at 10th level line to the bottom of impromptu teacher. To me, this immediately reads, oh yeah, Phalar, remind me in just a second once I'm done with this, and I'll let you know kind of how this works. Because I feel like right now, prepping people for the fact that basically impromptu teacher is getting an upgrade at 10th level will help people know right away when they're going into resurfacing experience that they don't have to be reading a feature from scratch, and that this is something that's basically an upgrade to a feature that they've been using up to this time, which can help players when they're going into a new feature to be like, oh, okay, I basically knows how this works. I just got to think about the original feature and what's being upgraded here. Additionally, I think this is a feature you can buff that is rare coming from me. And what I'm saying here is, first, I just want to separate this. I think this right here, this line, is enough of a buffer for the expertise feature that a lot of this that exists doesn't need to be made harder than the original feature. What I'm thinking is, since they'll only ever be gaining one expertise, I think you should make it just the exact same time sink and restrictions that impromptu teacher has. So let's hear, where does it start? Here. I think you could just go ahead and say, if you do this every day for a month continuously with the same student, if they have the proficiency and you have the expertise, you can upgrade them to an expertise. I think just saying this is an upgrade to impromptu teacher makes it a lot simpler, something that the player is already used to. And since they can only gain one expertise, is not something I think you need to make harder to teach, harder to learn, besides saying you need to already have the proficiency, the teacher needs to have the expertise, and they can teach you it. I know, it's crazy. I'm almost always telling you to nerf features by a step, by two steps, or saying it's aggressively out of line. But I think here, because it's going to make it so much more familiar to a player already playing through it, I think it's already pretty heavily restricted by what you need to know already, and by the fact that they can only gain it once in the entire campaign, that this is something I would say you don't need to make it take longer to learn. You don't need to upgrade it from 1 month to 3. I think just make it basically an upgrade to the same feature. Yeah. Huh. So while you're digesting that upgrade, Liar, hello and welcome to chat. Have you been watching many of my D&D streams before? How are you doing? Can I share some of my homebrew content with you? Liar, you are more than welcome at any time to share with me any of your homebrew stuff. I recommend, if you're really wanting me to give you some real pointers or what I think balance ideas I have, or to have a discussion with you, I'd recommend whispering it to me on Twitch so I can have time to look through your full write-up and really digest it. Additionally, Liar, if you would like, I am more than happy to actually do a public breakdown, kind of like what we're doing right now. Though I will need you to basically, in the message you send me, tell me specifically, I want you to do this on stream. And I'll be certain to do kind of my breakdown on stream so that members of chat and other designers can kind of look at it as well. But I don't want you to feel like I won't do it outside of stream. If you are in a position where you more want some privately for me to look at it and to privately send you messages, just go ahead and send me what you have and I'll look over to it. And if you don't tell me specifically you want it on stream, I'll just assume you're more interested in some private kind of looking. I'll go ahead and look at it and let you know. Just so you know, in case you don't watch my streams frequently, my D&D streams are on Saturdays. So the earliest I'd be able to look at this will be next week, though I do have a few other homebrew things lined up. So I'll let you know once I look at it when I'd be able to actually have the stream, if that's what you're interested in me doing with your rogue subclass. But I'm afraid for today's stream, this subclass is all we're going to be doing today. But I'll be sure to take a look at it, and if you're interested, kind of let you know. Okay, I made some changes I find satisfactory. So yeah, what do you think, Upgrade? Do you think my idea of buffing that ability is too strong in kind of the degree I'm... Oh, no. Oh, no. Alright, things seem to be a little off for me. I don't feel like there's a need to mention it in the early skill because this is homebrew, so someone would be reading the whole thing from... Oh, no, 1 sec. Yeah, no problem. That's fair. But I guess, what do you think of the idea of just making it also be 8 hours and what was it, 1 month right now? Rip page? Yeah, rip the page. Okay, research starting at level 10. You choose one new skill proficiency. Additionally, a student can be taught a proficiency into a skill and tool and can gain expertise in it. if you also have expertise in that specific school, skill, or tool. This takes 2 hours out of a long rest without interrupting the long rest, so same length of time to teach the expertise. If you do this every day for 1 month continuously, the expertise becomes permanent. You may teach 1 expertise per student and no more. You cannot teach someone who has a level of exhaustion. Perfect, yeah. It's a pretty old homebrew of mine. I'm starting to fall out of it, but I'm still proud of the subclass, and I hope you enjoy it when you get a chance. Oh yeah, Faye. Yeah, no, so I think it sounds like you were very interested in what I was saying of just kind of making this. I mean, obviously you don't want to put it in the text, and that's fine. Just an upgraded version of impromptu. One thing I'm going to say before I move on, just looking at this new version, is let's see here. Proficient game if you also have expertise in that skill or tool. I think this sentence, I don't have the answer right now, is going to be your most important to read over, rewrite, read over, rewrite again and again, because it's the most finicky part of this ability to state you have to have proficiency and the teacher needs to have expertise for this to work and to make it sound like it flows correctly. Let me just... Additionally, a student you taught a proficiency into a skill or tool can gain expertise in it if you also have expertise in that specific skill or tool. Yeah, I think this is something I don't know right now the best way to tackle it, but needs a little bit of rewording just to make it read a little easier. Yeah, I know. It's just what I'm saying is because it needs those specifics called out. I don't really know how best to word it. It's the sentence. I think this is going to be a hard sentence to get perfect. Like I'm going to say right now, I can't think of a better way to word it. It's just a little awkward reading through it. And like I said, I think this is just something that is going to take a bit of time reading, rereading, retrying. Just because I wish I could nail down what's kind of getting me on it. And maybe someone in chat out there, if anyone's got any ideas, might have something. But it's just something that I think is going to take a bit of time of looking at it just to see if there is a better flow way to get all of that information across. Like I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It just feels like there's somewhere in there the perfect smooth way to state it. But just, I know, unfair thing to throw out, but just something that I think is worth spending time on. All right, we're moving down. Adrenaline surge. Yeah. Starting at 15th level. Upon seeing allies fall before you, your mind and body rush as your tactical and physical training kicks in gear. Due to the stress of the situation, this sends you into a full-out calculated war mentality and pumps you full of adrenaline to restore your youth's fervor and vigor for a short time, but at a great cost. When an ally falls to 0 hit points, you regain your second wind, if it was used. Additionally, as a reaction, you can activate Adrenaline Surge. When using this ability, it heals you double the amount of second wind. Also, you can move towards your ally. You can move towards your ally your full movement immediately. And all attack rolls, strength, dexterity, constitution saving throws you make are done with advantage for 1 minute. Additionally, you make 1 extra attack when you take the attack action for the duration of the effect. When the ability ends, you suffer 3 levels of exhaustion due to your elderly body overexerting itself. You regain this ability after a week of leisurely activities and rest, and only after you get rid of the levels of exhaustion. Now, this is a very interesting ability, and the one I want to take a second to double back to my statement about the difference between one-shot and campaign balance. So this right here, quite obviously, is very similar to the Berserker kind of trend of being able to give up exhaustion points to gain extra attacks around. Gaining an extra attack for 1 minute, so that would be 10 rounds, is some crazy power. Obviously this is 15th level, so crazy power coming in makes a lot of sense. So let's hear. I think there's obviously quite a lot happening with the bonus of this, where first of all you heal double your second wind. Then you gain an additional move action immediately. Then you gain advantage on all of your attack rolls for a minute. You also gain advantage on these 3 saving throws for a minute. Additionally, you have an extra attack for a minute. There is a lot coming out here immediately. I'm going to say the cost of it is, I think, very equally high. But I think this is a feature that ultimately I'm not going to be able to say if I think is perfectly or like within the realm of balance or not, because of how many bonuses are coming out, especially in something like a one-shot type session. For a one-shot, you're not going to have a lot of time to, of course, get rid of those levels of exhaustion. But in, say, a dungeon crawl where you're entering a boss room, this is a pretty fucking crazy. Yeah. And we'll cut back to that for a second. This is a pretty crazy feature to be able to bring out. Something that comes with a high cost, but something I think ultimately use it on the BBEG and pray kind of ability. This is something I think you are going to have to find ways to in-game test. This is something because of how many bonuses are coming out, how many negatives are coming out. It's really hard for me, you, and a player in the moment to really mentally know the full scope of without having experienced it in the past. I really love kind of your use of this kind of week of leisurely activities. That's something that exists for a few features in the game, but not enough, in my opinion. Not enough to really get players thinking about the idea of taking time off, and is something I love that you're making use of. So the first real specific notes I can give is when an ally falls to 0 hit points, you regain your second wind if it was used. That is potentially horribly overpowered because of how easily abused it can be, depending on your exact wording for it. Like you could say, I see your sticky note. If it's an ally, it counts. So this is something where if you have a wizard or a warlock that has free uses of Find Familiar, if you're in a position where you're on a battlefield and you're fighting for one army or another, this is something that's basically very easily, and with the use of maybe one spell slot, basically states at 15th level, you have your second wind every round. If you summon enough elk with a druid that are out there just kind of as damage sponges or granting advantage for attacks with flanking or other actions, and they are dying every round, depending on how you're going to define an ally, this is something where you always have second wind. in a lot of situations if you get one of your allies to help you build for it. So I just think you definitely want to clarify here. Do summons, familiars, combatants, how about humanoid ally? I think that does restrict it quite a lot. That is probably very useful. So I guess, do you imagine that in that situation, say you have two armies fighting each other and a player is mixed in with an army? Does every member of his army count to him as an ally? Is there a range to this ability? Is it any ally you can see fall to 0 hit points? Or is it any ally anywhere falls to 0 hit points? There's this statement, I think, has a lot of wiggle room to it that you need to think about whether you want to close it up. Maybe you want it to be powerful because still they have to use their second wind every turn to abuse it. But it's still something that, let's see, maybe just add summoned animals and pets don't count. There's still going to be some specificity that needs to come out. But I guess my core question to you is, in an army of humanoids on your side, does every ally you see fall in a battle count? I'm not trying to say whether it should or shouldn't, but in your mind, for how you've built this class, do you see every instance of a human ally in an army dying on the battlefield as being a reason for this feature to proc? If you can see them, it counts. Okay. But what do you think, Upgrade? This isn't something, I think this is not something I'm trying to ask for a balance reason. Exactly. This is something I'm trying to kind of suss out where you want this class to live in that scenario. Is this someone that immediately feels attached to every ally fighting on their side? Or is this just they have to actually know and care about that person individually? I mean, you might, okay. So I think, first of all, yeah, obviously that's a good thing to add in, is just stating, any ally within line of sight is, I think, a fair enough bit of text to add to this feature. And just secondly, as a point of clarity here, is kind of the kind of, let's hear. I feel like it fits the theme because there's the saying, "Fear the old man that works in a profession in which men die young." All right. So then I think you now kind of have a better understanding of where you want to narrow this feature's effect down. And that's all I'm going to say is right now with the way it's worded, it is super broad, super abusable. And maybe that's what you wanted, but I was getting the feeling that you had a more specific idea in mind. So I think narrowing down and thinking about all the different ways that this could actually be procced and kind of allowing yourself to really think how specific you want to make it. The mental image of the scenario is hilarious. A poor old man just having the worst PTSD, getting pumped with adrenaline like there's no tomorrow. All right. And then the second piece here that is just kind of a clarity thing is, I assume Adrenaline Surge isn't using Second Wind, but is similar to Second Wind. I think just because of how similar this first line, where you regain health double that of Second Wind. Yeah. So they're not the same thing. So I think it's just be a little careful for how close is when an ally falls to 0 hit points, you regain your Second Wind if it was used. And making sure it is super duper clear that this is completely unrelated to this action. Just because of how the reaction is going to work, there's going to be just a very early moment in someone reading this of being, all right, does adrenaline use second wind? Do I regain adrenaline surge as well when someone drops to 0 hit points? Can I only use the reaction to use adrenaline surge when someone drops to 0 hit points? I think it's like, I can see that they're separated. And I'm not saying that there was no work done to separate them here. This is just a point where I think it is very easy for it to get misread. And so it's worth making sure you feel super confident in the separation work you've done here to make sure everything is as clear as possible. You're regaining second wind, and you can use this other feature that isn't related to second wind. Are just going to be some kind of important details to kind of try to clear up here and make sure you are 100% happy with kind of the specificity you have here. Let's see here. And with 10 minutes left, we're going to move on down to Renewed Vigor. Starting at 18th level, the extensive exercise and effort your body has endured has resulted in an overall better health. Your constitution score increases by 2, and your maximum for that score is now 22. Also, to regain adrenaline surge, you only need 24 hours of relaxing and downtime and rest after you get rid of the levels of exhaustion. Made a slight change to the second wind one. You can regain it a number of times equal to your proficiency modifier. Okay. I see. So that, okay. Like I said, I don't think there's necessarily a problem with being able to use it every turn. I just wasn't sure if that was actually what you were imagining with the feature, because it seemed like you were going for more of a losing someone you're attached to feel, as opposed to a character reacting to just general warfare. Yeah, no, I do kind of understand what you're saying, Marcial. A friend system would be very interesting, but I think something that would be super hard to blend in and require a lot of testing, balancing, and a lot of measures to protect it from being able to be imposed on another player, especially if he or she doesn't want it to be. So here, I think Renewed Vigor's got an element that is kind of okay, but not super interesting. Kind of the reduction to what it costs to regain your adrenaline surge is technically powerful, but if players are planning on taking 24 hours off or doing any sort of a time skip, I don't know if during a time skip, players tend to feel the great difference between a week and a 24 hours. Obviously, this could be very interesting in a time crunch campaign. So I think a clever DM can play off of this level up very well. I just going to say it's not a super interesting part of this feature, obviously. And I don't think you made level 18 to be like the super engaging. I think this is kind of, would I be correct in saying this is kind of your second, like level 7, that kind of moment of breathing, of relaxing, where you've gotten all the really cool shit. Now here's just smoothing out the kind of, yeah, it's a cap. Okay. So I think the first part of it, obviously, yeah, falls into where a lot of class caps already exist, kind of the increasing the maximum of a particular score, getting the bonus to it, and kind of pushing yourself above and beyond. I think, yeah, a lot of subclasses kind of, maybe subclasses do it. I wonder if that's actually something classes tend to do. Hey, I have to leave for something, so I need to go, but I will most likely leave the stream on to farm more points. See you, Eric. Nice and rest assured. Can't wait for Mass Effect next week. All right. See you, crazy Seth. Yeah. So I think this level, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think kind of this kind of cap feeling here, the very obvious. Let me take a look. Actually, does the champion? Yeah, I don't think any subclass actually increases maximum stat levels. I think that's something that only happens in a full class feature. I might be wrong. Feel free to correct me on that one. Let's hear. I know the barbarian gets it. So 1 second while I just take a, not races, oops. Let's hear class is barbarian. Primal champion, yeah, let's hear. So for the barbarian, yeah, it's at level 20. They gain the bonus to the maximum, honestly. Yeah, so I think if you go with this feature, your subclass is going to be unique, and that I think it is the only subclass that gets a maximum buff, which actually I think makes it pretty cool. It already means as a fighter you're having to dedicate yourself 18 levels, so I don't think it's going to run into any multi-classing issues where people will try to double dip, increasing their maximum stat bonuses. But that's just something to, yeah, to be aware of. The only times this stat, the maximum stat increase happens is at a class's level cap. So level 20, I think, is the only time this happens for any other class, but I also think it's almost always a +4 bonus. So that's just something to keep in mind. I don't think a +2 bonus like this is overpowered or is something that needs to be restricted from a subclass, especially because it doesn't look like the fighter has another bonus like that, so they wouldn't be able to double dip. Just give me 1 second to take a look. Archetype ability improvement might have it, though unlikely. Yeah, they just get another extra attack. So yeah, so I think you're very safe for the fighter subclass to be able to do this bonus, but just keep in mind you are now getting a maximum bonus 2 levels ahead of any other class and putting it on a subclass which no other class has. So that alone is a pretty unique and potentially potent subclass cap. As you can see, I have no sticky notes for this because I think as far as a cap goes, it's a very relaxed cap here. Let's see, I'll go ahead and refresh for you. Yeah, it's all looking clean on my side. So I don't think I have any major issues with it, but just maybe spend a little time looking around at everywhere else that has a maximum bonus and double or, oh, the credits are off screen. Okay, gotcha. Let me know when you want me to refresh again and I'll run it. And making sure that A is Constitution where you want this to happen. Obviously, the vitality plays into the fact that they're renewing their vigor, but that's kind of pushing the character more into the tank slot, wanting to be the one that receives the damage. And I'm not going to say it is or isn't, but double checking that that's where you want to push the pinnacle of this subclass. Is the pinnacle veteran the guy trying to soak the most damage for his teammates? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Is that you want them to be the most reactive, in which case maybe look at the dexterity if you're wanting them to be a bit more damagey. So Martial, it is very strong in certain aspects. It's just that kind of if players are going to be taking some serious time off, honestly, a lot of the time it isn't a huge difference between 1 week and 1 day, just because during that time they can't be doing any adventuring at all. Yeah, no, 18 is supposed to be very strong, and I don't think anything out of here screams at me for being unbalanced, but just definitely, yeah, it's basically the protector and teacher for the party. It still needs 4 days. Yeah, Plus, it takes 3 days to remove the exhaustion, so it's not as big of a reduction as it appears. But it is true that it's a pretty big reduction, but I don't think an out of balance one for this stage. But yeah, upgrade. I think for the level cap here, I think it's pretty well balanced. I would say not super interesting, but that's also fine for a cap. Just something that immediately grabs me about the level 20. It is not the level I'm most excited for, which is fine. Most subclasses try to make the most exciting pieces on it a bit earlier to catch players and then kind of relax as it goes on. It's just something that jumped out at me when I was reading through it. The only thing I would say, yeah, is look at that. Okay, I'll give you a refresh. Look at that maximum stat. Make sure I'm still seeing this here. Might be a little tricky here for this to fit onto one page, might be the problem, though. I don't know. Yeah. Don't worry too much. So yeah, I think for level 20, yeah, just taking a look at that stat boost, making sure it still feels right for the curve for you, and making sure it is 100% the stat you want them to be able to go above and beyond on. I did it before, I'll do it again. Hell yeah, upgrade. But beyond that, honestly, I feel like as far as the cap goes, I have no major notes beyond making sure you read through it yourself again and really, really think about the impact of that maximum stat increase. So overall, how would you rate it with the changes added? I don't think I'll be doing an actual rating system here. What I would say is I'm really interested in how the teaching system for the veteran plays. Obviously, the ability to teach proficiencies is their bread and butter, but is a feature that doesn't super exist within the PHB. So it's not something I immediately can say whether it would be fun to play around with, strong to play around with, weak to play around with, or dull to play around with. It's something I'm interested in trying, but not something I can really say right now whether the bread and butter of this class would actually play as interesting as it is to think about, you know? I think some of these like helping out features, I think watch the recruits to me is my favorite feature here. Being able to use my reaction, which I love using my reaction for anything besides opportunity attacks, just because as a player, that is the most fun I have, is when I get to use my reaction for literally anything else. To help players with a floor, there's going to be a lot of times where players are just constantly rolling above the 10, which can feel bad, like you're wasting your reaction. But also that time where they need to scale the wall. If they fail the ability check, they're going to fall to their death. They roll a 1, a critical failure, and you get to say, no, you didn't. You rolled a 10. That I just know I would fall in love with. Can you explain real quick what the difference between a one-shot campaign and a campaign is? So, severe adrenaline surge, or in general. So, Marcial, really quick. A one-shot campaign is a campaign that'll take 1 to 3 sessions and generally only goes over the course of a day or a few hours in world. So a feature that's like you can only use this once a day is not punishing in a one-shot campaign because you only have 1 day to use it anyway. So the next day not being able to use it won't impact you. That's fine. Whereas some features that you get to use like only once over the course of a day are going to feel a lot more punishing in a one shot, where that means you get to use this once for this adventure. Whereas in a campaign where you can spread an adventure out over weeks means I get to use this multiple times in the adventure, so it's not punishing at all. Yeah, I'm out. Yep. Also, you regain uses on a short rest, so you can use them a decent amount. The all reliable, I think, has some is kind of like is a relaxing level. It's a level that comes with a lot of things where a player is now getting kind of pulled into the rogue or bard direction, which isn't bad. In fact, can be really fun for the individual player. What I'd say is all reliable from the player playing it is great. It's going to allow them to branch out and do a bunch of shit they couldn't do before. If they're in a party with a bard or rogue, it might feel a little bad for an existing jack of all trades if another player starts filling out that role to a degree. But as the person taking it, all reliable feels great to cover up weak spots, to branch out into places you want to try, and to kind of get that extra saving throw or initiative. That's really cool. Resurfacing experience, I think with the big buff you gave to it, I like a lot more now. Now that I know it's basically the impromptu teaching, just a better version of it. It feels perfectly within the class's wheelhouse now. It feels exactly like I already know basically how the feature works. This is just a better version of it. Yeah, okay, changes are done. Everything should goddamn fit. Gotcha, gotcha. So I think that's what I'd say. I am super interested. Yep, everything fits perfectly. Though I'm a little hesitant with it. I think we did a lot of really good work with it, but because of how unique the teaching feature is and how integral it is to the identity of the subclass, there is a chance if an actual play, for one reason or another, it doesn't translate well, that the class could very easily not feel as fun to play as it is to read it, you know? So I think rating, very interesting, some cool stuff I want to play with, but a lot of unique features that could be really good or could end up not being very good at all. Yeah, this is one that I'd say vastly more so than the barbarian subclass is going to need someone to play it to know if it's going to be fun more so than probably anything else I've seen so far. But with that, I believe we are at the end of today's stream. Went a little longer than I expected, but I'm glad I set the hard limit for me because I could tell I am about at the ends of my voice for today. So that is good to be bringing us to a halt here. As always, Upgrade, thank you very much for allowing me to kind of bring this up and show this on stream for people. And I hope to get a chance to look into the last one you sent me coming up next week. What was it? Fayfire? One moment. Faylire, if you're still out there, I'm excited to read through your homebrew and maybe be bringing you in on the next stream as well. Because I think with a full-length stream, I'll be able to cover two pieces at once. And hopefully we can all enjoy ourselves quite a bit. If anyone has any notes, wants to look over any of my homebrew, or wants to catch last time's stream, check out the archive on my YouTube channel or any of the VODs we still up. Also, I encourage any of you to reach out to each other. If you have notes from the read-through yourself that you would like to talk to the designer for, I think Upgrade is more than happy to back me up on this. When someone says they want this done on stream, that means they are excited for more people to tell them what they think. So please do not hesitate to let people know what you thought, any notes you have, or anything you really saw as interesting, whether you want to steal it or play it yourself. But with that, I wish you all a good night. And I hope to see you next week as we begin our next game series. And as I get a chance to look over some more of my viewers, homebrew content and see where things go in the future. Good night.